So hi everyone and welcome to the With Love Nyasha podcast. I'm your host, Nyasha Marian, and here on the show, our goal is to share ideas and experiences as a way to help you own your creative essence and find healing as you embrace your essence. So today I have a guest with me, and so this is Cuthbert Mwale, and Cuthbert is a leadership coach, team developer, and mentor with 10 years of experience. With a holistic approach to personal development that focuses on finding self, he teaches many to maximize their impact in society, communities, and teams. Additionally, he's also a creator and musical artist with 20 years in music. So hi Cuthbert, welcome on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited. So today's episode is going to focus a lot on leadership as a creative. So I guess the first thing I'd want to ask you is, like, when people hear leadership, often the first thoughts are about creating with vision. So like that's usually the first thing, but what are your thoughts on this?
Without kind of really dragging this up, because knowing me, I could. The assumption in the question is that, the vast majority of people, or many people that think of leadership, kind of attach the creative concept to it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be presumptuous of us maybe to kind of think of it in those terms. If we want to include everyone that doesn't necessarily see leadership in a creative sense, maybe we can just kind of talk about what it is, or what it means to be a leader. A lot of people confuse leadership with management.
That is true.
Right. And there's probably a few people that are listening, thinking, oh, there we go. That's the traditional conversation when it comes to leadership,
Mm-hmm.
leadership versus management. We're not going to get into that kind of elementary conversation. But I think that in order to understand, in my opinion, actually, and this is something that I've come to really embrace and learn over the last little while, relearn actually. And it's interesting how sometimes you kind of relearn the same lessons, but just in a new way, in a new light. But I've just been really thinking lately about the whole theme of leadership in the sense of, stewardship.
Okay.
Right? How you take care of the resources that life deals you, be it your past experiences, your present experiences, circumstances, roles that you put on, be it a brother or sister, or mother, uncle, whatever it might be in your close circle, or the role that you put on, in your pursuits as far as your livelihood goes at work. And I feel like leadership is bringing all of that together and being a good steward of it. And in doing that, having the people that you impact benefit first and foremost as you serve them, right? Mm-hmm. So I say all that to say, before we kind of tie creativity with leadership, I think it's good. It would serve us well to understand that leadership really, even though we might tend to kind of look at it from a collective, team, society, multiple bodies kind of perspective, leadership honestly starts with mastering yourself.
That's true.
Leadership is actually, first and foremost, from a foundational standpoint, a very, very lonely kind of area, universe, sphere, environment. Because you can only lead others as a byproduct of being able to lead yourself. Right? And if you can't be a steward of all the things that comprise you, an individual, right? If you can't be a steward of that, you can't lead yourself. And if you can't lead yourself, you can't be an effective leader of others, right? And if you can't do that, you then can't get into those spaces that require the ability to pull from these resources, these experiences, whatever, and come up with creative or create solutions, create clarity, create a peaceful, healthy environment for the people that you impact. So I think first and foremost, mastering oneself, learning to be a steward of those emotions, those thoughts. I mean, if you can't organize your thoughts, if you can't master your thoughts, if you can't master your own habits, if you can't lead yourself, if you can't bring yourself to submission to serve yourself, you're not going to be able to do that with 2 people, 10, 50, 100.
I like
Eventually, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Now, I was just gonna say, I'm like, everything you're saying, essentially, is saying you need to take care of yourself before you're put in a position of, not, let's not say power, but a position where you're leading other people.
Yeah, and in taking care of yourself, I think part of that, and here's the thing, like, you know, I'm not going to pretend like, you know, I have everything all figured out. I think self-discipline is just one of those hardest things to master, and I think that we do that until we die, right? And it's just, you know, you just level up in the mastery of yourself, and in, you know, coming up with those, you know, processes or processes, depending on who's listening or what your purpose is, or systems that you have in place. And I think over time you employ wisdom. You know, you start to learn that, you know, some battles you can fight and some you don't have to, and some lessons you can learn from others and you don't necessarily. And I think that's kind of, you know, what wisdom is, and then employing all of that and just finding ways to bring all of that to submission, in a sense, to serve your well-being, your goals that you have, you know, set out for yourself, the things that you're trying to achieve, things that you're trying to, you know, grow in. I think it starts there before you can impact other people.
That's good. So then I guess what advice would you give someone who is, let's say they're trying to figure out their life and specifically trying to fulfill their plans or dreams, right? So what advice would you give someone who wants to do that and they see themselves in a leadership position type vibe?
Okay, so I mean, if we're talking about people that have ambitions of being a leader, that's a very interesting place to be in. I feel like, and I'm of the opinion, I'm okay with being, you know, wrong about this, and, you know, those that are listening, if you want to, you know, interact with this, you know, podcast and reach out to either one of us, that's cool. You know, I feel like ultimately leadership finds you, because it's service based, right? There is a need. There is a problem that needs to be solved, right? There's a vacuum that needs to be filled for whatever reason, for whatever purpose. And so leadership tends to find you. And I would urge anybody to question, if you have ambitions of leadership, maybe take some time to just reflect on what that is and why that is, right? Because I feel like leaders are called. Crisis happens and you find people just step up. You know, it's not like they're ambitiously hoping for there to be a crisis so that they can rise to the occasion and lead, right? Often just leadership just kind of falls on you, and then you just have to dig in to your resources, your experiences, your talents, your capabilities. And when you have a mastery of that, when you have been able to lead yourself, to bring yourself to a place where you have those things in order, or you have the ability to lead yourself, when that opportunity arises, usually not sought after, but usually people that have those natural leadership tendencies tend to just kind of come out of the woodworks and serve.
Interesting. So then would you say intent, depending what someone's desires or aspirations are, is important, or is it more so from the perspective of there's a situation that happens, you happen to be someone who either has the skills, the gifts, or the knowledge or know-how to help provide a solution to that situation?
So I would say forget leadership altogether.
Oh, okay.
Right? Forget leadership altogether. Forget thinking about being a leader, right? But think about being the best version of yourself to provide the most impact for the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, leadership will just organically stem and it will flow. And you'll find that people will be drawn to you for advice. They'll be drawn to you for solutions, right? They will look up to you because they see they buy into the confidence that you bring, the charisma that you have, your ability to communicate clearly a vision that people can rally around because of just the overall integrity and the person that you are and what you bring to the table, right? But see, that doesn't just happen overnight, right? That is all that work, that we put in when nobody is watching, to build those disciplines, those habits, those systems, right? That's where, when it's game time, and usually, like I said, the situation calls for you, right? Typically, when it's game time and it's crunch time and the solution is needed, hey guys, actually, you know what? I've dealt with something like this before, or you know what? I have an idea. I don't know, blah blah blah, A B C D F G, and all of a sudden it works out. And like, oh wow, that's Bob from that department. We didn't know Bob was about that life, or hey Bob, listen, we have a strategic planning meeting. The way that you did what you did on I feel like maybe we would like to hear if there's some inputs that you can kind of bring to this discussion, kind of thing, right? But it's not like Bob just by accident just one day. No, Bob was probably put through some life situations that developed some certain things, and some toughness was built based on some enduring of some hardships, or you never know, right? But either way, the point that I'm trying to make is I feel like some people say leaders are born. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. And like I said earlier, it all depends on what you think about leadership and what leadership is to you, right? To me, honestly, it's about simply just maximizing your impact on the people that you serve.
That's fair.
Here's a problem. Yeah. How can I be a plug? How can I be of service, right? And I feel like life then starts to put you through situations that then develops your leadership by virtue of being ready to respond.
Interesting. Your comment reminded me of this. There's a woman I follow on Instagram, shout out Courtney Sanders, and she's always talking about in the entrepreneur space, you have to make sure you're taking care of yourself, which goes back to making sure, self-mastery, self-discipline, doing all the things you've talked about, because essentially you are your business. Because if you're not in the best condition and you're the leader of the business can only go as far as where you're at, especially mindset wise and mentally wise. So now when you made the comment that not everyone is born to be a leader, I would say yes and no, actually. So yes, how do I say this? I think everyone has the potential and spirit of leadership, but it takes an individual making the time, honestly, to cultivate that,
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. I think
okay.
You misunderstood. I was saying that I don't believe in the leaders are born.
Yes, right. I agree with that.
Yeah, anybody can be a leader. I just feel like, and that's why I was saying, it's all about, forget. And that's why I don't look at leadership as in, there was a time where I looked at the whole, the whole aspect of leadership as don't get me wrong. Yes, there is a part of it that is it's a calling, but you have to respond to it, right?
Yes.
But then, in responding to that calling of leadership, there is a certain aspect of accepting the journey, which is the development and the growth that it's going to take to be.
That's fair. Yeah.
That leader, right? And Some are open to the journey and some aren't, right? And it all depends on, your perspective and, how you respond to adversity, how you respond to, discipline. But I will say this. One of the biggest things I think when it comes to that self-mastery, like I know there's a lot of people out there that are probably cringing when you hear that kind of stuff, like, oh, here we go. You think about like, personal like coaches and those leadership, those speakers, and it's like they preach this this brand of you can do this and blah blah, and if only you put the work. Like what I've come to learn is your journey and your like your journey to leadership, or let's say your journey to effective stewardship. You heard it here
That's
first.
better.
Your journey to effective stewardship doesn't have to look like somebody else's.
Yes, I
Right?
100% agree.
But in any stage of that journey, right? The biggest lesson that I've learned is give yourself grace.
Yep.
Give yourself grace. Don't be too hard on yourself. You are human. We all make mistakes. But the first thing is that we have to give ourselves room to fail. Not only that, but we have to give ourselves room to forgive ourselves in the areas that we let ourselves down.
That is good.
It's going to happen. I mean, you can't please everybody and you can't please yourself sometimes. We come up with these ambitious goals. We set this and blah, blah, and this vision and that vision. And there's nothing more demoralizing than not meeting your goals. And there's nothing more demoralizing than not meeting your goals and then really settling into that defeat and that disappointment. That then starts to rewrite this negative narrative that you can't do it or you're not cut out. No, it's part of the process. And you have to give yourself grace on your journey to become that effective steward of whatever life is going to give you.
That's good. And honestly, I would even dare to say, because, today we're talking about leadership and specifically as a creative. And for those, again, I'll say this again on this episode, that I believe everyone is a creator, right? You have the ability to create in whatever sphere or field you are, whether you're academically finding the next breakthrough to medicine or you're chefing it up in the kitchen and making the best meal, whether your family or the restaurant has ever tasted, you have the ability to create. So with the topic of being able to create as a leader, I think it also starts with vision too, because I believe that a vision is an idea that's inspired by the creator, So whether the vision is something you see in your head like a picture or just a thought or a song or a film or a recipe, it is now up to you when you get those bursts of inspiration to express that vision, because if you're in a position of leadership, most of the times you're usually, and I think all people get inspirations of visions. What do you call that? Not inspirations of vision. Sorry, guys. Moments of inspiration. There we go. I think everyone gets moments of inspiration where I'll even tell you guys a story. The other day I was heading to the university in my city, and I had the thought or inspiration to park underground. Now, granted, it was because it was snowing heavily and I usually park outside, okay? But I was like, and I did not want to go. Not because I didn't have to be there, because I did have an appointment. But I was sitting here, I was like, okay, I could park outside, and just sacrifice the 10 or 15 minutes it's going to take me to take the snow off my car. But I sat there and just saw this picture, like underground parking. And I was like, oh yeah, we do have underground parking. So I made the investment and said, you know what? Today we're going to invest in self and park underground, because the time it's going to take me to clean the car is not something I want to spend. So and I think sometimes we overcomplicate it when thinking that, the inspiration has to be something grand, like, I feel inspired to start this huge business. Sometimes it's something as simple as I have an idea to literally create a melody. I don't know where it's going, or I have an idea that could help me solve the essay issue I have right now with my schoolwork, or I have a simple idea. I had this inspiration to bake some cookies. I think inspiration shows up in different ways, and like you were saying, right? Leadership is more than just I'm in a position with a title, right? It's not about having a title. As a creator, I think everyone, like we've been saying, has the capacity and potential to be a leader. It's just, are you going to express that? Are you actually going to actualize that? I know somewhere in scripture it says, like, when people have no vision, they perish. So I want everyone to kind of understand that it's not about, oh, I need to have a specific vision that so I can execute perfectly. It's just, do you have an idea? And if you have an idea, what resources do you have to make it happen? And if you don't have the resources, who can you partner with to make it happen? Because if the idea is constantly showing up and repeating itself in your mind, you have the choice whether you want to express it or not, So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you said a lot, and like there's a lot of good stuff there. For those that get intimidated by the word vision, or words like inspiration, let's make it more practical. For the everyday person like me. I want to substitute both those terms with intention.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
Right. So when you think vision, just think intention. Right. As in, when you are living your life, going about doing what you're doing, are you just coasting, going through the motions, going wherever the wind blows, without a sense of self, identity, all that stuff that we were talking about? And that's why we talk about leadership. Basically, it's a mastery of self. But the product of, or the byproduct of the journey that you pursue, that self-mastery, should be intention, right? A sense of intention. That's what that vision is all about. That's what that inspiration is about, because you're working towards something. So the steps that you take, you are taking them with the intention to get you somewhere, right? And it may not necessarily be a very clearly set out, defined end state, but just a sense of a direction sometimes. I'm not necessarily sure what that end picture looks like, but I feel like I should be headed in that direction. Well, if I'm headed in that direction, it means I should get on this bus, which is going to take me to this terminal. Then I'm going to see, there's the intention. And see, when you live with intention, what you're then doing is you are living purposefully.
True.
And there's nothing more demoralizing than going through life feeling that you don't have a purpose. It is not some magical, crazy epiphany that happens in some cave somewhere when you're on some trip. No, honestly, it's just about choosing to just be intentional about something. You know what? Today, I'm going to go to the library.
Facts. Facts. Legit.
I'm not even kidding. And you know what? Maybe you go to the library a couple of days this week, and then you feel, hey, you know what? I set out something. I set out a goal, your vision, your intentionality, and you executed. Next week, you might be able to handle something else. And as ridiculous as it sounds, we often have, these grand ambitions about end states. When you think of yourself as a leader, like you see yourself on stage with thousands of people. No, literally. It's being able to lead yourself. Can you lead yourself to the library? Can you master your thoughts, your habits, to fall in line with the goal which you've set today, which is to get to the library? Can you work through the adversity, which is that laziness that's really hitting you because that bed just feels so comfortable? Can you lead yourself out of your bed to the bathroom to brush your teeth, and then lead yourself to your closet or your drawers? Put on some clothes so that you can lead yourself out of the door, so you can get to the store or the library. It sounds ridiculous, but sometimes we find ourselves in these like debilitated states where we feel like, I just don't know what I'm doing with my life. I feel stuck. Get into the habit of experiencing little victories. And I'm telling you, those little victories, one day, you're going to be looking back and you would have found yourself in a place where you grew into somebody that can lead themselves to achieve certain things. And that's that intentionality. So when you think about visions and, ambition and inspiration, it starts with being intentional. And there's a reason why I said that. and it's this. Inspiration is a trap, and it's very dangerous. If you are a person that is waiting to have that inspiration so that you can then be intentional about something, you're going to be waiting forever, and you're going to keep experiencing that sense of being stuck, of not achieving, of going nowhere. Life is pointless. Why am I here? Blah blah. That's where it starts. And I know it sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like inspiration is fleeting. It can be here today, it can be gone tomorrow, and it may not return for a while. And it might, and when it does return, it may be for a short while or a long while. The point that I'm trying to make is, inspiration is a temporary state. So when we talk about mastering yourself, it's about putting systems in place that will not be susceptible to whether you have inspiration or ambition or not. That is why habits, good habits, are very important, because they determine how you execute or whether you execute to begin with. When you have habits, you are able to go through adversity a lot better, because you have built a system that, regardless of how you feel, this is what I do on a daily basis.
True.
I don't feel like creating today, but you know what? I have it scheduled. This is on my schedule. This is what I do. I don't necessarily have any ideas in my mind right now. I'm just going to go into the studio. I'm just going to mess around. It's what I do. All right? I open the session. I start doing this and this and that. Next thing you know, you blow your mind. You just created a masterpiece. And it might not have happened if you just didn't commit to the process and the habits that you've put in place. As a creator, it has happened to me so many times. So many times I've been blown away by simply committing to the process, even when things seemed so improbable.
Mm-hmm.
But nah, I've scheduled this time. So let me lead myself to be true to myself and my schedule. Let me bring myself to the submission of the system that I've put in place to put myself in a position of success. Now, take that and put it in a group setting where there are individuals you get to empower and get to show this and demonstrate it so that they can experience those successes too.
I think you said a lot of good things, because I do want to clarify. When I said inspiration, I do agree that you shouldn't be waiting for inspiration in that sense, because you won't get anything done. But I just meant in the moments where you have, those moments where you have this grand idea. It almost seems like it's one of those ideas that you spend maybe a bit of the next year or so, fast forward, doing it. No, wait. Okay, because when I said a vision is an idea that's inspired by the creator, I think when we wake up every day, it's not, because I know we talk about, life is about discovering self, but I don't think life is really about discovering self. I think life is about creating. Every day you wake up, you are creating your life. You're not discovering it. And I feel like if you're waiting, which kind of goes similar to what you were saying, if you're waiting to be discovered, it's kind of a waste of time, because people recognize your gifts through the work and the value you provide. So I would say it's not about discovering, but about creating and expressing whatever vision, the ideas, or whatever things that come up to your mind every day. So that's why I really love the example you said when you talked about going to the library. If that's what you did for the day, that helped you in whatever way that helped you, go ahead. You don't know what going to the library may have meant if you were there and happened to compliment someone's shoes, and you have no idea what they're going through, but that made their day. So I feel like sometimes we underestimate the value of our presence in certain spaces, even as simple as grocery shopping, So I hope, does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, guys. I am not anti-inspiration.
Yeah, of course.
As a creator, I can tell you the best place to be is when you luck out, when you're in the zone, you didn't even know, like, just bam, like it just comes delivered to you, like packaged, like finished, and all you have to do is just execute, you know. I've been in that state where everything is buzzing and you just have that inspiration, and things are just they are just flowing on a frequency that is like unlike anything, right? But here's the thing. Without putting in the work to develop systems and habits in place, when that inspiration comes, you will not be able to maximize
or sustain it.
Right? My dad always used to say when I was a kid, he's like, lightning strikes but once. Right?
Okay.
As in, lightning strikes a spot, and the chances are, or the probability is, it'll never strike that spot
Twice
or ever again. Right? That's inspiration. So when inspiration hits, you better have a system in place to draw from it. But if you're not in an expectant state, if you're in a desolate state, if you're in a state of no productivity because you're just defeated, discouraged, you've believed the lie, which is you're not good enough and you can't, and so you're not expectant and you're not in go mode, ready to execute, then that inspiration is just going to be wasted.
And honestly, I would even say that having the systems, the habits, the discipline is super important. And if you are in a space where, let's say, the inspiration, quote unquote, hits, right? You just need to write it down. That's it. Write it down so that when you have developed those things, you can easily go back to it and say, oh, this is the idea I had. And once you have it written down, when you go back to reference it, you can simply start by making a plan. Literally, do some research. How much is it going to cost for me to do this? Or do I need to even pay for anything? Do I know people? In my sphere of influence, I do not care if you are someone who works in a large corporation, or you have 10 friends with multiple different skills. If they are people who can help you make your vision happen, express your idea, reach out. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to sound fancy. Just get it done. And then as you do that, you literally actually start learning new things on how to fine tune your process and just make it better. So if version 1 sounded really clunky, guess what? At least you did and completed version 1 or part 1. Now, when you do version 2 or version 5, you have more experience and you know exactly what you need. Like for me, when I started writing, I honestly, guys, I had no idea what I was doing. I just said, oh, I just need to write and that's it. But as I've been going through the process with different people, I've had to learn that I need I need more software that I didn't know I needed. And on top of that, I need to maybe network with some proofreaders and editors. There's more to the process than I thought, but you know what? At least I started. And it's actually funny, because when I wanted to start writing, I remember telling you, and I was like, I want to start writing. And the first thing you told me was like, Kate, you start learning how to, what did you say? You said, learn the habits of writing now. So if it means you wake up at 5 a.m., start building those habits now so that when you actually do start the writing, it's much easier to transition. And I remember that. And I was thinking to myself, even as we're talking, I'm like, and I think that's something people need to consider too. Like if you aspire to do something, start building the habits now. And if it's, let's say your schedule is super busy, maybe you're a full-time mom, start slow. If you want to be a gym buff because you love going to the gym, before your baby, start slow, maybe a few squats a day, 10. And then from there, maybe you might build to a weight. And on top of that, maybe you might even end up going heavier. Maybe you will carry 10. Guys, I'm not a gym person, so I don't know. But maybe you'll carry from 10 pounds to 20 pounds. But start slow because your body is a muscle too. So the more you do it, it doesn't matter how light it feels or how not effective your body is adjusting. Over time, you will see the results of it,
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, out of all of this, the biggest takeaways as you do these things, as you develop habits, and I know at this point, somebody listening might be thinking, okay, you guys are talking about habits and systems. Like, okay, what habits? What systems? Good question. We'll get to that. Because we can be talking about all that stuff. Because it's easy. It's easy maybe for somebody who's a creator or has a lot of experience, creating or leading or whatever, to kind of get what that means. But for somebody that might not be, we'll get to that. But what I would invite you to kind of think about right now is, think of your brain or your mind as a vacuum that is desperate to be filled.
Okay.
Think of it as a perpetual vacuum that it has an insatiable appetite to be filled. Mm-hmm. Right. Now, this is where it kind of really gets real for me, and this is what I really focus on with people. Mm-hmm. Because as much as we can talk about all of this, the battle and the work actually starts in your mind.
That's true.
Right? You lose that battle, you're not going anywhere, right? So mastering your mind, what does that look like? When we talk about habits, to put in place, you need to position yourself in a place where you counter or you have a plan or you have a response to any thought that is counter to what you should believe about yourself. You are a product of your thought life and your thought process, whether you like it or not. You manifest what you focus on. Now, I'm not talking about some metaphysical, supernatural, magical, religious. No. What you focus on thinking about, your life becomes a product of it. You gravitate towards that, right? Worry, anxiety. There's countless studies of what that actually does to your body on a physiological, level, your health, right? So, and I'm not saying that this is easy, and I'm not saying that it happened overnight for me, but it's like, I know I am my own worst enemy. I know that when I start buying into certain thoughts about who I am or what I can't do, it's easy for me to then start believing that stuff, and it starts to shape my reality because it starts to shape my actions, how I execute or whether I execute or not. True. Right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about systems and disciplines, it's basically anything and everything that is going to aid you and empower you to see the future state of you. Your identity, who you are. And when you start to focus on that stuff, I want to be this, or I want to be that, or I want to, you set a health goal. I want to be, achieve this level of fitness, by next year. Mm-hmm. Automatically, you have thoughts like, how many goals, how many times have you set these goals, right? You suck at this, all right? You're pathetic. You can't follow through with anything. You can't commit to anything, blah, blah, this and that. And those are the thoughts that we let ourselves think, and we start to believe those things. And when we start to give those thoughts room, what happens? It's a self-fulfilling, the self-serving cycle. Mm-hmm. Then you don't achieve. And then guess what? You dig yourself a deeper hole for the next time you come to a place where you want to, set that goal. Eventually, you just stop setting that goal. Years down the line, you're not healthy. And there's physical, medical implications to that and that sort of thing, right? And I know that it sounds like some BS, for some people, but it literally comes down to you simply making a choice.
Sure.
I'm not going to listen to that person. Yeah, I've messed up, but my past doesn't necessarily, define my present and my future. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before, the future, the future doesn't exist. It's only the perpetual now moment that we live in. So every decision that you make matters right now. For as long as you have breath, for as long as you have a heartbeat, for as long as you have an opportunity to do something about something, you have an opportunity to sit there, still your mind, block every negative thought, or combat every negative thought with a positive thought. I'm going to do this. I can do this. And then you might graduate from that just being a thought to you're putting it on your calendar.
True, yeah, that
right?
Simple as that sometimes.
And maybe you put it on your calendar, but life happens and you make excuses and you don't go, but you know what? You try again, because for as long as you have an opportunity to do something about something in this perpetual now moment, you have a chance to get to where you need to be. But that being said, it all comes down to being able to lead yourself. To me, honestly, that's what true leadership is. Are you able to lead yourself? Are you able to set out, to come up with a plan, a goal, and actually set out steps to achieve it? And yeah, you know what? We're human, and sometimes we fall short. But do you have what it takes to pick yourself up? And when you don't have what it takes to pick yourself up, do you have the wisdom to have the people in your circle that can help you get back up? And by the way, that is like one of the biggest things that I've learned. Actually, if you don't have a circle of people that can keep you accountable, but not only keep you accountable, but be there to pick you up when you screwed up, you need to do that. And if you don't, you can reach out to me. Just kidding.
LOL.
But honestly, like, you know, the battle is in the mind, and it's like it is, and that's where the defeat happens. The defeat doesn't happen, like, honestly, the defeat doesn't happen on the physical plane, the reality that we live in, out there doing the things that we've set out to do. No. The defeat happens with the doubt in our minds, with the discouragement that we believe, with the excuses that we latch onto. Honestly.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I would say, even to add to that, I think sometimes let me share this. I was reading a book recently, I can't remember which one, and if I do, I'll put it in the show notes, but there's 3 levels to creating, right? Thought, speech, and then action. And I think sometimes we underestimate the power of our thoughts, because then if you're not actively engaging with those negative thoughts like you were talking about, then essentially you're kind of sleepwalking through life and then wondering why stuff is happening to you. But the thing is, you literally, as a person, as a creator, as someone who is living, have the ability to engage with those thoughts, negative or positive, engage with them and think again, like think a completely new thought again. And I know, like, for me, when I started doing this, it felt kind of foreign, but like the more you do it again, your brain's a muscle too, it'll get used to it. So if you're wondering, like, okay, but how do I do that exactly? If you're thinking, let's say a thought, right? I don't feel like I'm enough. Engage with it. Why do I feel this way? Actually, you know what? And start saying, I am enough. I am. Listen, I'm not really an affirmations person, but I've been learning the most powerful creative statement you can make is an I am statement. And whatever follows is kind of like you were saying, a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you constantly think I am not enough, then okay, that's one level of creating, but you still have the opportunity to engage with it. But if you think it and then start doing things that confirm that you're not enough, that's the second level of creating, because there's power in your speech. So then now you have to mitigate the actions, the words you're saying and the thoughts. But then if you start thinking it, you're speaking it, on top of that, now you're living it. You have to literally now go deal with the action first. If you're beating yourself up about what action was a result of those thoughts, you have to deal with the action and then deal again with your speech and the things you're saying about yourself. And then at the root of it all is literally the thought. So if you're experiencing certain thoughts, some days you won't get it right, and that's fine, like you were saying, but engage with it. Don't passively watch the thought pass by. I had a moment earlier in the day, actually, and I was sitting on the couch thinking and just in deep thought, and I saw this thought that was kind of like it's not going to work. And I saw it and I almost let it pass by. Then internally I just had this feeling like, girl, why are you watching this start like fulfilling itself in your mind? Engage with it. So I engaged with it. I'm like, no, but it will work. Like, I am capable of doing it. I am the offspring of like the creator. Like, what are you talking about? And in an instant, it was gone. Right? It doesn't mean, and I say it was gone, not saying like sometimes they don't come back. They do sometimes resurface, but again, you keep engaging and dealing with it. And yes, excuse me guys, sorry. And yes, sometimes that might mean, you know, you end up maybe with a coach, right? A coach can help you work through certain things. And other times, sometimes it could be a therapist. I've done both. I prefer coaching, to be honest. But whatever works for you, having an accountability group or partner is very helpful because then they can see the things you don't see, you know? So listen, guys, deal with the thoughts, and it's not from a space of deal with them, and if you don't deal with them, it sucks, because I remember being in a space of condemnation at some point in my life. But I'm simply saying, start looking at the thoughts you think about yourself, and if the thoughts you think about yourself, you don't like them, you have the power to change them yourself, you know? So any last words for our audience? Feel free.
So that being said, you know, because I know there might be comments like, well, I mean, easy for you to say if you're battling with, you know, mental health and this, that, blah, blah, yada, yada. Like, the reality is this. Actually, let me rephrase that. Mm-hmm. I'm of the strong opinion, and I strongly believe, based on things that I've seen in my life, that I've experienced, and in the lives of people that are close to me, you know, your inner person, unfortunately, is highly programmable.
Interesting.
Now, you can either control the programming or you can succumb to the programming around us. Society, trends, what the media tells you you are, or how you should feel about yourself, and this, that, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. The point that I'm trying to make is, and this is what I said earlier, you know, you're in a person, you're like a vacuum that is desperate to be filled. Somebody once told me, as a man thinks, so he is. As a person thinks, so that person is. Like, you become a product of what you focus on.
As a man thinketh in his heart. Yeah. Subconscious mind. Whatever you're thinking, subconscious mind. Yeah.
Another person told me, if you change the way you see something, that thing in itself changes. You can change the way, you can change something by changing how you see it. Because changing how you see it then reprograms and reorients your approach. Mm-hmm. Your options of executing. Are we going after this thing? And if we're going after it, it's A, B, C, D, F, G, or am I running away? And by running away, is it X, Y, Z? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, your thought process, how you see something, literally determines how you respond. Right? I'm going to close by saying this. Your inner person is highly programmable. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's easy to think about that on like a big scale. No. It's the little things. It's the little things that become little permanent building blocks that over time amount to big obstacles that become hard to overcome. But just as much as some people might have those big obstacles in their lives, reversing those is, in a sense, kind of the same process. You chip away at those blocks, a chip at a time. But it's being intentional. It's knowing that that's the work that you have to do. It's understanding that your desired mind state is something that you're willing to put work in to achieve. Because when you look at what that person that you aspire to be and sit there and think, oh, you know what? one day, I don't know, just something's going to happen and, I'm just going to, like, it won't. It's the little things. And that's why we talk about self-mastery, being a steward of the things, the hand that life has dealt you. What am I dealing with? These are the mental blockers that I have that are, obscuring my vision of who I want to be. Okay? Let me engage that. Let me deal with it. Who do I need to reach out to? Do I need a mentor?
Yeah.
See, you're executing, you're being intentional. You're being intentional. The inner person is highly programmable. And what you put in or what you let yourself believe.
Or consume.
What you let yourself consume. What you expose yourself to. I'm so deliberate about this that I think very critically about what movies I watch, what shows I watch, what music I listen to.
Facts.
Because I've come to understand the power of programming. It is actually crazy. And if you think that programming doesn't happen, honestly, just Google it and you'll see. You'll go into a rabbit trail that's going to change the way you see everything. But we are programmable human beings. So to put it this way, program yourself for success. Whatever that success looks like, if it's achieving a certain future state, an end state, or achieving something you've always wanted to achieve, or pursuing something you've always wanted to pursue, program yourself to execute, to go after that. Because it's not going to happen on its own, and it's not going to happen with just you sitting on your ass feeling sorry about yourself and I don't want to do this and blah, blah, yada, because I don't feel like it. Well, you're not going to feel like doing a whole lot of things, but you have to do it anyways. Because when you do that, you start to give yourself an opportunity for your brain to experience the little wins. And those little wins, just by getting up, going to the bathroom, going to the library, like we talked about, that becomes a win. Your brain registers that as a neural pathway. It responds to it, it interacts with it a certain way, and it starts to build on it. We're not talking about conquering the world, becoming president, this, that, blah, blah. No, you start somewhere. And as leaders, we often think that we have to step into a situation and do something remarkable. No.
And I would even suggest, if anyone's looking for a book suggestion, I recommend Dr. Caroline Lee's Switch on Your Brain, because she kind of breaks down the idea. She's a neuroscientist, if you were wondering, but she breaks down the idea that if you just spend, I think she says 7 or 10 minutes a day, just almost auditing your thoughts, and then addressing the ones that don't align, and then reworking them. She has a framework in there on how to do it. You can change, she says, within 21 days, because 21 days is apparently the number of days it takes to completely change a habit. And then post that, you're now maintaining the habit. Yep. So if you're interested in that book, feel free to read. And I would even say, before I get into the warm words, I will also say this. When you're doing all of that, the reprogramming, for anyone who's like, what? Just think of it as you're creating yourself new again, right? Your old self is dying every day, and you have the opportunity to create yourself as new. So I will end with that. And my warm words for you are: the world needs your vision. People need your speech, your book, your kindness, your unwavering faith, your honesty, your encouraging words, your meals or recipes, your carpentry skills, your policy idea, your skincare recipe, your academic breakthrough, or your artwork. In whatever you're gifted in, the world needs you. Your creative expression of your idea is the solution to something someone has been looking for. So continue embracing your beautiful essence and express your ideas with the gifts you have. I'm rooting for you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.